Welcome to the Clemson Dubcast. It is Friday, February 17th at TigerIllustrated.com. Right now, hot off the presses, Paul Strelo's late week recruiting insider, chock full of insight and intel. Going to be really interesting to see where the offensive lineman from Greenville, Blake Franks, ends up. This guy's wanted to go to Clemson for a long time, so if he ends up not going to Clemson, and particularly down the road in Columbia, South Carolina, going to be a pretty big gut punch for the Clemson football program. But Paul Strelo will keep us posted on that moving forward at TigerIllustrated.com. My good friends Blake Smith and Brooke Archenhold have been part of the podcast since the beginning, way back in August of 2018. They have an accomplished team of personal injury attorneys at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold based in Greenville. They are Clemson people, and their skillful attorneys have decades of experience in complicated litigation matters, taking a special interest in medical malpractice, nursing home abuse and neglect, car accident cases that have left the individuals involved in serious trouble. For a free consultation at Parham, Smith, and Archenhold, call 864-990-4581 or online at parhamlaw.com. That's PARHAM law.com. Solero Communications, formerly known as Tandem Payment, is a full-service integrated electronic payments provider powered by leading-edge technology. Solero provides a wide array of merchant solutions, simplified payments. They make onboarding, taking payments, maintaining risk management and compliance, and getting support quick and easy. At Solero, they're all about helping you achieve sustainable growth as a business. Taking payments isn't the only thing your business needs. With Solero's solutions, you can manage inventory, sell products and services via social media, schedule staff, track sales, get reports, and much, much more. Find out more about Solero at solerocommerce.com. That's CELERO commerce.com. When you're ready for a complete renovation in your home or business, open the door to more with Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Their local experienced team will totally transform any room space, from beautiful floor coverings to construction to finished details. Harris handles every step of your renovation process, whether it's a kitchen or living room or an industrial or educational setting, like some of the positively stunning work they've done at Clemson University. Go to discoverharris.com and experience a total renovation transformation from Harris Home and Harris Commercial. Okay, the folks at Clemson University and schools everywhere really spend a great deal of time and money trying to create an attractive and fun game day experience, football, baseball, all the sports. But sometimes the best and most magnetic parts of certain game day experiences can't be manufactured or created. Sometimes the most special elements of these things happen organically over time. And the story and presence of the Cheap Seats certainly fits into that category. They are celebrating their 20th anniversary of hanging out on top of an old school bus, drinking beer, talking smack to opposing outfielders, and mainly just loving Clemson baseball in its purest form. A lot of fun here, digging into the history of the Cheap Seats. Enjoy. Here we go. Okay, joined by Garrett Edens, the president of the Cheap Seats. Am I getting your titles correct there, sir?
That is correct. Yes, this year's current president of Cheap Seat.
Cheap Seats, plural.
Yep, Cheap Seats, plural. Now it's officially Cheap Seats Incorporated.
Oh, big time. So
yeah.
When did that happen?
Legitimately, it happened many, many years ago, but we thought we had not filed the paperwork correctly, and then when about a handful of, 4 years ago, we started talking, saying, hey, we're all adults now. It's time to get a little more serious and make sure everybody's rear end is covered. So we started looking into more insurance and the incorporation and all that. And we're like, hey, we're actually good here. So it happened many years ago, but I couldn't tell you exactly when.
And the 20th anniversary, that is just crazy to think about. I guess a lot of us feel really old by virtue of that statistic.
Yeah, it blows my mind how fast it has truly gone, kind of preparing for this. I'm reading over everybody's kind of different stories, and it just reminds me of how much fun we have had over the years, and it's just how has it flown by so fast? Because I was there day one. All
right, I came across an article written in May of 2009 by the late Greg Wallace of the Anderson Independent. He was actually good friends of mine and a bunch of other sports writers. He went and hung out with you guys, and I kind of feel like I need to read the entire article aloud, in part somewhat as a tribute to him, but also to kind of set the stage for listeners about what y'all are all about, if that's cool with you.
I think that's great. I remember that night well. I remember Greg, and it really was a pretty awesome article.
Yeah, and also we can stop and laugh and chuckle and have little interludes through the article if you like. I'm sure there will be instances that might jog your memory, and so I don't want this to be a total monologue from me. We can just sort of comment as we go, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a perfect. The headline is Clemson fans love life in the cheap seats. And it starts, it is a perfect early May Saturday night in the right field corner of Doug Kingsmore Stadium. A late afternoon rain has blown through, leaving temperatures in the low 70s and no humidity as the sun falls below the horizon. The odors of cooking crawfish and cheeseburgers waft from the Cajun Cafe suites behind the outfield fence, and if you're a college baseball fan, this is a little slice of heaven. If you, this is just great. And if you're AJ Casario,
Yep.
And if you're AJ Casario, however, it's more like a chunk of hell.
And that is accurate.
Casario has done nothing to deserve this. Maryland's starting right fielder is one of the Terrapins' leading hitters, a 27th round draft pick. Is he still around, by the way?
You know, I can't answer that. I wanted to look it up, but I can't answer that.
Yeah, I'm not a baseball guy, so I definitely wouldn't know.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of, once they get paid, I don't follow much.
So I guess you're not a college football fan anymore?
Yeah, it's shifting, unfortunately.
All right, getting back to it. A 27th round draft pick of the Los Angeles Dodgers out of Overbrook High School in Pine Hills, New Jersey. Trouble is, Maryland is facing Clemson tonight, and that makes Anthony James Casario public enemy number one of the cheap seats. Hey, Anthony, who designed your uniforms? MC Hammer? And I'm just, the imagery of, it had to have been his pants, right? Real puffy pants?
Yeah, he was the shoeless Joe Jackson. Yep.
Hey, Anthony, you should have gone to the Gulf Coast League when you had the chance. Should have taken that $250 signing bonus. Hey, Anthony, go ahead.
I remember that vividly. He even chuckled pretty good at that one.
Hey, Anthony, at least you can still go back to Jersey and pump gas. They still do that there. Welcome to one of the most unique fan groups in the ACC and perhaps college baseball. From humble beginnings, a 1979 International 36-passenger school bus purchased 6 years ago meaning 2003, from Lawrence Academy for $450, the 40-member Cheap Seats group has become Doug Kingsmore's most raucous environment, one which must be experienced to be believed, and I agree with that. I've only been here 2 years, said Orlando, Florida native Bill Freeman. The late Bill Freeman, rest in peace. Unfortunately, man, two beloved folks who've passed away since. Whose son Mike is Clemson's starting second baseman. But this is one of my favorite places in the world. End quote. Gathering behind Doug Kingsmore's outfield fence to watch a game is hardly a new tradition. Cheap Seats member and local lawyer Harry Boterford, known to all as Punk, remembers coming 20 years ago with his dog, food, and a six-pack of beer to enjoy the atmosphere. And I know Punk casually. I'm just the imagery of that is making me laugh.
I think a lot of people know Punk.
He's never represented me, FYI, but just making that clear.
That's a good start.
Earlier this decade, the group, which eventually became the cheap seats, was among a large number of Clemson students who watched games and partied beyond the fence on cobbled-together scaffolding. Clemson cracked down on that, cheap seat Secretary Garrett Edens said. Man, you've moved up in the world.
Yeah, a little bit.
Back to the quote. Go ahead.
So it's been a long 20 years.
Yeah. They built the suites in right field, but they knew we were here to watch baseball, so they let us stay. I'd love to hear more about
just a touch on that. The initial times, I don't know if you ever saw it, but I mean, monster oak trees, 150, 200-year-old oak trees out there that just towered over everything. The bullpen was not there at the time. The chain link fence was probably 20 foot high, and I believe there was 2 sections of them. We just had trucks backed up to the fence, or, some guys had couches sitting right up against the fence that they set up on, the Monday prior. But I remember, I was always on the front of the fence because it was always about baseball for 10% of the crowd who was up against the fence. And then at this point, you would turn around and you would see 100 yards deep, just heads. I mean, just a sea of people, and all it was a party. And, I remember multiple nights that there were many kegs on the back of trucks at this point.
And the time frame there is...
That would have been 2000 to kind of 2002. I think it was after the South Carolina game. I remember vividly. That was really the night I was talking about when I turned around and looked, and I was like, oh, my God. It was just too much. And that's when Clemson started cracking down on that. And they really allowed us to stay on the fence, and they allowed multiple groups to stay on the fence. And there was, different fraternities. I had a group with SAE. We had the sailing club group, and then, some of the older local groups. And that was kind of our 3 main groups that ended up later on coming together and forming, the core of cheap seats, what it is now. But, you had AGR guys would have their set up all the way along. I mean, this thing used to go out into left field.
Yeah. Okay, and then back to the article. In 2003, several members pulled together and bought the bus, which Edens quips burned more oil than gas on its trip to Clemson. Inside the bus, most of the seats have been torn out, replaced by an orange Davenport that Clemson discarded during Memorial Stadium's last remodeling, and a comfy beige couch. Now, this is 14 years ago. Does that remain the same inside? I mean, do people hang out in there still, or is it...
I was in there just a couple weeks ago. We were working on getting the horn back in shape, and I was looking at things. And no, it's not as tidy as it used to be, but I can tell you this, that beige couch is still right there ready to go.
How about things like cockroaches, rats, mice?
Every one of them that has visited and stayed is still there.
Holy smokes.
It's my wife will not go in the bus anymore. She just stays over the top of it.
How often do people go inside the bus?
We'll utilize it on some heavy rain delays quite a bit. It's just we need to get in there with a shop vac, but unfortunately we've had some vandalism too over the years and some broken windows that we have to replace, but we just never seem to get that shop vac out there to clean it up the inside.
All right, back to the story. A stereo system gives the bus music or audio from the Clemson game broadcast, and atop the bus, a carefully constructed platform system gives room for 40 to sit or stand and enjoy the game, with a large grill, couches, and plenty of space for snacks and drink coolers. There are 2 decks with stairs leading from the ground to the first deck and another set connecting the decks. And before you ask, yes, it's completely fire safe and up to code. That was a lesson learned the hard way on opening day 2007, When members arrived 2 hours before the game, they found a sign tacked to the bus from Pickens County's new fire marshal, notifying them that they couldn't board because they violated fire code. It was a kick in the gut, Edens said, a straight kick in the gut. All right, present day, what do you remember from that day in 07?
Well, let me tell you, at that point, I was still, I had already graduated in 05, but I was living in, actually, that date may be off because I believe this may have been 06 season. I was living in Raleigh, and so I was on the way down. Usually we get there quite early on opening day just to tie up some loose ends, get the flags ready, and I want to say I was maybe the second there, and I had gotten the phone call just as I was pulling into Clemson telling me, hey, this is what we got, what's going on. And I'm like, okay, never happened before. So I said, well, we got to call our legal representative, which was Harry Enos Bodiford, also known as Punk. And so Punk jumped right on it, and we, even the baseball teams, like, what is going on? Or I forget, who it was at the time that was kind of Brad Owens's position. I know John Cicetta was very involved with us out there too. So I know we were talking with him, and anyhow, they got the fire marshal out there, and we're like, hey, we're getting on this bus now. You tell us what we need to do. And first it was not going well at all. He was like, absolutely not, so I was kind of working in construction at the time, and I had a decent knowledge. I was still a freshman in the world there, and a couple others did too. We're like, wait a minute, no, this is we can do this, and this, and it should suffice. And so we let the legal representative kind of hash that out, and then we got some instructions on, okay, if you do this, we'll give you a temporary permit to occupy until you can get it for, other stuff done. So fortunately, I had some construction materials already in the back of the truck. And then somebody made a run to go get some additional lumber, because really we had already tried to make a railing and all, because we didn't want to, Dave Topham said we didn't want to create a false sense of security. Him and Frank Murphy were the ones really working on that. So they never wanted to create a railing because they didn't know how well they could secure it. And if somebody goes and leans on it, it's better to kind of fall straight than off at an angle. And so the railing was already there, but it definitely was not adequate. And I think that may have been a red flag when he had driven around. But we weren't the only ones. He shut down everybody out there that day. So anyhow, we get to work, and we put up the hog wire to close up the railing and add some lumber here and there and get some different supports. And it was, I think, about the fifth or sixth inning, with him standing right there, he finally said, "You're approved to board the vessel," and we were right back in it.
You said they shut everybody else down. What did they do to get back into the?
They pretty much quit and went home. Worked on another day. I believe there may have been one other that got to occupy, but everybody else, no, they were empty.
Now, when you say they, you talking about the Cajun Cafe?
No, this was the other groups of college kids.
Okay.
That would have different things. I mean, this was a big deal. They had multiple scaffoldings for different groups that was set up along. Now, nothing was as big as ours, but they would go all the way along the outfield up to the center field wall, and then they'd pick up on the other side. And there was a time where there was a couple crazy nights that that entire outfield was looked like it was 12 rows deep. when we never even had stands at that point.
If we can.
But that is also kind of what led to the demise of all the other groups, because I forget what the situation was on the field, but the rest of those idiots started throwing things on the field.
Oh, wow.
And that's what shut them down.
So it just got too big and too intoxicated.
Exactly.
If we can take a short departure from the article, you mentioned you lived in Raleigh, you did construction, so you had a pretty busy job, and yet you're coming down for every
weekend. At that time, it was every weekend. Absolutely. We didn't miss it.
Well, how did you do that? You have to take off early on Friday, of course.
Well, yeah, fortunately, I had a good job that, if I worked 10, 12-hour days, Monday through Thursday, they were like, do it, go ahead. As long as I had everything in order, they didn't mind. And I never gave them a reason to argue with me. So that's how I did it. I would leave basically on Thursday nights and hit the road.
And how long did you live in Raleigh?
Just 2 years. 2 years. I ended up getting married and moved back to the upstate, started my own company, and that's where we've been ever since.
What about the rest of the inhabitants of the cheap seats? Most from the upstate live around here? You have others who live good ways away?
Well, you got Brian Griffiths is up. He's actually a Master Chief in the Coast Guard. He's kind of been scattered around. I think he's still in Virginia now. And Dave Topham, he's down in the Charleston area. Frank Murphy's in the Columbia area. There's a handful of others. We've lost one a couple years ago. And let's see, Mark Rivera, who's led it for the longest time. He's in the Clemson area. So for the most part, when it comes, Frank Murphy drives up all the time from Columbia. So he's probably the one, with the furthest drive that makes it up regularly. But everybody else, everybody's off kind of living their lives. There was a couple of years where I stepped away a handful of years because I was raising my kids. There's other folks, Boykin Bell, had to do the same thing, but he's in the Greenville area. But he went back more than I did during that period. But now we all have kind of come back, and we're very involved.
When you say very involved, obviously the time is more than just the game itself. Talk about, I guess, what are the activities and maybe responsibilities as well over the course of a normal weekend, before a game, after a game, all that stuff?
Well, back in the old days, we would, the bus would set up at the beginning of the season, which was quite a process. We'd have 20, 30 people out there with 5 people doing work. But we'd have to set it all up, get the scaffolding set, and once they were there for the season. We'd jack the bus up on, I bet it was 24 to 30-inch blocks. And it was well raised off the ground to get level with the fence and how we needed to set it up. So there's quite a bit of work that had to happen at the beginning of the year. But once all that's set up, the day-to-day stuff, getting the flags up, there'd be one person that takes that duty. I handled mainly the tickets, and so that was a lot of work just for the right at the beginning of the season. And once you got them all out, you didn't really have to worry about it. Mark Rivera, basically led us for many, many years, and he was the one making sure that we got the bus cleaned up, painted during the off season. The bus would go different places during the off season too. I could touch on that later, but there's quite a bit of stuff to do. And then once you're in the game, I felt my job was dedicated to getting into the head of the center fielder and right fielder. And so I did homework. I mean, I was well prepared. Sometimes we'd have laptops out there. I think that was right at the beginning of we'd get internet. And so we're doing research on, whatever we can get off of this guy. What's his sister's name? We have where she went to dance school and, different friends, his ex-girlfriend. And by the end of it, we'd have her phone number and she'd be out there giving us information just to get in their heads and just shake them up. Like, they're not thinking about the game. So that was kind of and that's still one of my fun things to do. But, Patrick Martin is one of the big hecklers. He's probably one of the loudest out there. And then Andy Patrick, he's our chief bugler. You'll hear the bugle going off from time to time out there. And then, somebody's got to wave that massive flag on the cane pole. And everybody kind of takes turns on that because that wears you out. Especially back in the day of Michael Johnson, Khalil Green, we'd have some workouts. And then somebody would have to man the horn. Yeah. So that was one of the jobs during the game. But nowadays, it's a little bit easier. We have to do a little bit of work getting all the tickets out, and we work to make sure that we get as many people in the seats that we can. So, you have your main ticket holders, but we require them, hey, if you're not going to be there, you get somebody, do your best to get somebody in that seat, or let us get the tickets and we'll get somebody in the seat. So, that's where we're working. It doesn't matter if it's snowing, if it's beautiful outside, we want to have as many people up there, showing support for our ball team and making sure the right fielder knows that it's going to be a hell of a weekend for him.
So as part of the stadium renovation in 2009, Clemson decided to incorporate the bus into the stadium permanently. What went into that in getting them to sort of recognize your credibility and the appeal of making that a fixture from your recollection?
Well, I think it goes back to the many things that happened over the years and how we always continue to stay because we were all about baseball first. We made sure we weren't caught up in any shenanigans that happened out there. Excuse me, got some sirens coming by.
That's okay.
So we made sure that we were not caught up in the trouble, and we were always supporting the team. Whatever we did, we kept it clean. And over the years, no matter what, we would get moved for some reason or another, but they wanted to make sure we were there. And so we get moved to left center, then we got moved to center field, and then back to right field after, 10 years of not being in right field. So when I think we were in right center, and we had all heard the plans of building I think they had already built the batting cages, and we had heard the plans of the big seats. They may have, I can't remember exactly what was there and what wasn't, but they built the scaffolding first. And then they built the scaffolding for Cajun Cafe, and we were still out there in right center. And then that's when they said, hey, we're adding stands. We're going to move you back to right field. Okay, well, we set up next to, just like we always did, with the scaffoldings and the railings on the bus, and but we were right next to the Cajun Cafe scaffolding. And it was about a year so I think we were set up like that, but they had at that point they had said, hey, we're talking about wanting to permanently incorporate this thing, whether we buy the bus or we give it to, there's Mark Rivera was very instrumental as president during that time. He really carried us through on that. I was just kind of on the board, so to say, and helping with what we thought on design stuff, what we wanted to do. But that's what they came to us and said, hey, we want to take over cheap seats. And that's initially how it kind of got talked about. There was no exchange of money or purchase or anything of that kind. But they did say, hey, we're going to spend $40,000-$50,000 and build this platform for you, and we want to put the bus right there with it. And, so that's when Mark started with the meetings there and got everybody in agreement, and there you go. They designed it, built it, and here we are now.
And when was this?
Whew. We have a little too much fun out there, so sometimes the years kind of blend together. I would say that's 2011-ish.
Okay.
2012, something like that.
Okay. And go ahead.
Kyle Parker era, or right there at the end of the Kyle Parker era.
Yeah, that would have been 10 was his final football season. So, and then he played.
That would have been, that's 11.
That'd be 11.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned Mike Freeman's dad, father of a player ends up ingratiating himself with that. Like how does that happen? Like he just shows up one day and does somebody know him and then it just sort of catches on?
Yeah, that's kind of how it happens. He wasn't the only one. Will Lamb's dad, Phil Lamb. There was another dad, Sanders. Oh, I'm sorry. His first name.
Matt Sanders? Matt
Sanders' dad. Yes. Matt Sanders' dad was there. All at the same time with Lamb and Freeman. And I want to say there was one other. I can't, he may not have been there as much. But, Bill Freeman, his personality is just bigger than life. So me and him are going to get along great. And, we saw him coming a mile away. And he's like, I got to get up there. And like, hey, come on. And so he introduced himself. And we all became great friends instantly. And I think, the first year we were just like, hey, just come up whenever you want. And then the next year he's like, hey, I got a buddy that wants to come up here. And I think that's how Phil Lamb may have gotten up there. That may be incorrect. But, and then Mr. Sanders was up there. And that was actually, we were still out in center field because there's some pictures. I know there's some pictures that I saw recently after Mr. Freeman passed. Of them sitting in lounge chairs, him and Matt Sanders' dad sitting in lounge chairs on top of the cheap seats with the sunset. It was just gorgeous behind them. But yeah, life of the party. We had a great time with that group of parents, and then there's been others too over the years, and some of the players, even past players. And that was kind of when I was off raising kids, so I missed some of that time. But I do remember, I think after we beat FSU I think we won the ACC and we locked up regionals. The guys had crashed the bus out there. I can't remember if it was center field or right field, but Freeman's up there, Lamb's up there. We're just having a ball, and next thing you know, Bill says, "Hey, we're going to the sailing club, and we're having the after party was out there, and we had the entire baseball team out there on the lake having a blast after that game, and that was Bill Freeman setting all that up. And I remember, Kyle Parker was there. So I guess that would have been 2011.
Mm-hmm. That might have been 10 because that's Clemson's last. 10 is the last Super.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Lost to UConn the next year in the regionals, I believe.
Well, this would have been before regionals.
Yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. All right, I'm going to go back to the article, going back to the getting it up to code and all that. Punt Botiford made some calls and found out what meeting code entailed. It's panic, Botiford said. This is baseball. We were running around like chickens with our heads cut off. By the 7th inning, thanks to some hard work and hog wire, they were back on the bus with a temporary building permit in hand. The bus, everyone now admits, is much safer for the trouble. This year is the group's first season back in its original right field home. Okay, so that jives. Wait, well this is 09. So I guess 09 is when y'all were permanently back, unless they moved y'all back across for a time.
Yeah, we got moved a couple times.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So 09 was the first. Might have been temporary. Close enough to get food from the Cajun Cafe and smell the sulfur from the rally smoke its members let fly from time to time. Cheap Seats members pay $150 for season tickets plus an extra $25 for dues related to upkeep. Okay, has that changed?
Yeah, slightly. I like to joke it's the not so cheap seats these days. But it's probably it's more than doubled.
Okay.
But we still pay dues, sure enough, because we do have expenses of upkeep and some different things like that.
They also sell T-shirts and can huggers, and any money left over from dues and sales will be donated to a charity of their choice. It is a fairly exclusive club, though. Clemson officials allow only 40 passes to be sold, and 20 are spoken for before the season starts, with 6, quote, guest passes, end quote, held back for friends, dates, and spouses. So who does Clemson handle the actual ticketing? Like how do y'all sort of juggle that between Clemson, University?
They send us the 40 tickets, and then we take care of that. So Patrick Martin is handling that this year. So basically, I get the tickets in all at once, and then I ship them all to Patrick, and then he goes one by one to each ticket holder and gets them handed out.
Is there still like a waiting list, or?
Yes, actually, yes. It's we have had some changing here recently, so it's gotten a little bit smaller. But yeah, it's kind of like first come, first serve on the waiting list. Sometimes people move away and realize, hey, let me get these tickets to somebody who's actually going to use them. So that's kind of how it happens. Or unfortunately, we've lost members who've had tickets, and we find somebody to scoop them up pretty quick. But we always want folks who are dedicated to being there and love Clemson baseball.
Yeah, and in general, Clemson baseball, let's just be honest, hasn't been as hot of a ticket over the last decade plus. I'm curious, as you guys are rising in stature from 03 to 11-ish, there's all sorts of regular buzz about Clemson baseball. There's all sorts of appearances in super regionals, hosting super regionals. There's regular trips to Omaha. How do you reconcile the last decade plus of mostly struggles, and how do you think that sort of has impacted the ritual, so to speak? I mean, I know y'all are all hardcore baseball guys, and you have it in your blood, but I'm just curious what that's been like to sort of suffer through struggles that are really kind of shocking. It's shocking to just say, to acknowledge the statistic that, hey, they haven't hosted a super regional since 2010. That is just mind-blowing.
Yes, it's difficult. It's definitely sitting on our shoulders, and it is a topic of conversation quite often. With this group, there is nothing. There's never a time that we're silent. So we will heckle our own. We will find ways to be entertained out there while watching baseball. And, it's been rough, but I know I can hear Patrick Martin right now. I mean, some of those losses when we were right there, it was almost just like comical on how some of it would go down, and just very, very painful. But, we laugh about it. That's life. And it truly hasn't impacted, our base at all when it comes to that. If these guys, really, if any of our members kind of think that way, they're not going to be at the bus long anyhow. We're in it because we love baseball, win or lose, and just being at the Diamond is therapy in itself.
If you're in the Eastern Midlands and PD area and you're in any way interested in buying and selling a home, commercial property, land, need to consider reaching out to Uptown Realty. They're based out of Sumter and run by a friend of mine, Patrick Enzer, big Clemson guy, used to cover the Tigers in a newspaper capacity, longtime supporter of Tiger Illustrated, longtime listener to the Dubcast. The home buying process should be an enjoyable experience, so let Patrick and his staff do all the heavy lifting. All you got to do is pick up the phone and call 803-774-0435 or go to uptownrealtysc.com. Another loyal supporter of the Dubcast is Blackacre Law Firm in Greenville, a subsidiary of Parham Smith and Archambault. Blackacre helps South Carolina residents achieve their dreams of home ownership by providing experienced professional representation for real estate closings. Attention to detail is crucial in real estate law. Blackacre is committed to making sure nothing gets by them preparing residential or commercial closings. Blackacre also offers estate planning services for their clients in the Greenville area. Find out more about Blackacre at 864-326-3507. Want to share a quick word about Founders Federal Credit Union? If you've been to a sporting event in Clemson, you've probably heard about Founders already. They are the official credit union partner of the Clemson Tigers. In addition to that, all Clemson faculty, staff, and students are eligible for membership as well as IPTAY members. Matt Gross is a proud Clemson alum and the vice president for the Clemson market for Founders Federal Credit Union. Matt's office is located beside the Walmart Neighborhood Market on Old Greenville Highway in Clemson. For more information, go to foundersfcu.com. So later in Jack Leggett's tenure, the guy who I think y'all are quoted as saying he was your patron saint in this article, or maybe it was another article that I read, he gets let go. I mean, I know that within the Clemson fan base, there's lots of disagreement. You have your Jack people and you have your people who say even now that it was time to go in a different direction back in, I think it was 2015. I'm guessing that the group of folks in the cheap seats is not all in lockstep about one coach or how things were handled with Jack. How would you describe sort of the evolution of opinions and thought about what Clemson did in parting with him, and then, of course, more recently, getting rid of his replacement, and then bringing in a Leggett disciple, not only a Leggett disciple, but Jack himself, as he is back with the program in, an administrative supports capacity.
Well, I'm not gonna say that there was never chatter saying, "Hey, we got to make a change." Or hey, things are maybe you're just getting a little dated. But for the most part, I mean, everybody still was a huge Jack fan, no matter what, going through all that. Of course, we're unpaid coaches and umpires sitting out there at the field, and so we're going to give them hard times no matter what. But we all, I think, or most of us would agree that we wish it had been handled differently at that time, rather than just completely cut loose. And really, the way it's come around this last year, I can remember it even being mentioned at that time. Doing something like that's being done this year. So we're really excited to have Jack back. We had group from the Chiefs seats at the banquet a couple weeks ago, and we all got our picture with Jack, and spent some time with him, and just super excited to have him back and involved. And I remember seeing Jack quite a lot during his time away up there at football games at different events in Clemson. So he truly never left or completely was gone, and I was happy for that. But yeah, I think there was a heartburn from everyone on kind of how that went down.
All right, I'll get back to the story here. Talking about getting it up to code. It's all worth it, though, when the season starts and opposing right fielders become targets. On this night, Caserio provides a particularly easy bullseye. He entered the game hitting .320, but this is not one of his better nights, and the cheap seats guys know it. They start by razzing him about the sunglasses atop his cap, not necessarily tonight. And the real fun starts when he tries climbing the wall. Oh, I'm sorry, not necessary tonight. The sunglasses weren't necessary because it was a night game. Sorry, got to get that right. And the real fun starts when he tries climbing the wall for a Wilson Boyd 2-run homer that lands 20 feet above his head. You're going to need a rocket up your, it says butt, but you're going to need a rocket up your ass, Edens says. I don't know what you were thinking. That was 30 feet above you. When Caserio grounds out to end the third with runners on base, Cheap Seats is ready. Rally, killer, they chant, which will become a trademark as Caserio trudges through a 1-for-14, 5-strikeout weekend. At least you still have those cool glasses stapled to your head, Edens says. Caserio ignores them, but his play shows he's rattled. His defensive misplay turns a routine single into a triple, and he even overthrows the Terps center fielder during routine. Man, you got routine mid-inning warm-up tosses. Y'all were in his head, man.
Yeah, it was a perfect weekend for us.
AJ, we're not even trying, Edens yells. You're providing us with all the jokes. Go ahead.
I said that was a fact.
Okay.
Everything went wrong for him that weekend.
When it happens again, a few innings later, the guys are ready again. Bad news Bears, they chant. Bad news Bears. Hey, AJ, somebody chants. We don't have 2 columns for errors on the scoreboard here. Before long, even Cheap Seats... All right, I got to ask, though. I mean, all this good humor and it's intelligent stuff, surely some drunk jokes have to bomb. What do you do when somebody says something that's not funny? Do you like...
Oh, no. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Nothing's off limits. Nothing's off limits. We will turn on our own very quickly. So, trust me, I am thinking well ahead before it comes out of my mouth. Because, I mean, if it's bad, I remember the right fielder turning around, talking trash. It wasn't AJ that day, but, they will jump on us just as quick, and our own crowd will, give them a hard time. And, one of the best was, you'll hear us every so often do survey says, and that'll come from somebody that just fell on their face trying to insult them or getting – the best is where, you get so animated and you're just on them. You're on a roll, and you're in this guy's head, and, like, everybody kind of just shuts up and lets you go. And then all of a sudden, you can't even get it out your mouth. And you're just like, and then everybody starts cracking on you. It is a whole other element to the game.
How do you walk the very fine line between, gentle, well, not so gentle, but baseball razzing and, too much? What's too much?
Well, I'm not going to say we haven't crossed that line, but we self-monitor pretty quick. And if it gets to that point, we'll tell them, hey, shut up. It's too much. Got to quiet it down, clean it up. But yeah, I mean, it's happened. I mean, there was a time I know, and I know it's happened to a couple guys, but there was a Carolina game, and I forget the guy's name. He played outfield, and his brother played for us. And so I had just a whole list of things. And this was in warm-ups. And I got under him so bad, he was on the wall, climbing the fence, pointing at my face, just barking obscenities, and I'm right there back at it. And, I mean, if there wasn't 8 feet of fence, remember the big gap they had between the fences? If there wasn't 8 feet of fence between us, it would have been a bad day probably for both of us. It kind of reminds me of how they have dogs just barking at each other with a glass door, and then you open the door and they just shut up. But I mean, it was ugly. And I remember John Cicetta called me, and he's like, "Hey, you got to shut up." I said, "Yes, sir. Point taken." And I mean, literally, this was 45 minutes before the game.
Wow. Well, it's an accomplishment in 2023 to keep it decent, because there's so much indecent stuff out there from fans. Like at football games, the press box is right behind or right above the student section, and my goodness, some of the stuff you hear there, some of the chants, like I'm just like, people bring their kids to these games? Like, I don't know if this is
well, and I will be there are certain games that my kids do not go to.
Baseball game? You mean in the cheap seats?
Yes, baseball games. I just know. And we gotta. And it's not that that's being yelled out publicly, but there's stuff being spoken loud that it is not a kid-friendly environment on certain games, and we just know when and where that will be.
South Carolina, Florida State.
That's one of them. Yep.
Miami, maybe.
Miami does get ugly. Louisville, we're just not fans of, and so it. I remember having. Well, it wasn't me. I'm not gonna say who it was by name. They know who it is. But they were on the back row, and they were barking too loud. And I remember our Punk, our legal advisor, he had to tell him, "Hey, shut up."
All right, I'm going to fast forward to the article, the end of the article. On nights like this and many others, this realm is pure bliss. It's better than any sport, Punk Botifer said. It's a social occasion in a baseball game. You see people that you don't see except at baseball games all year. It's really nice, and I look forward to it. It's kind of difficult when it's over. It's kind of a letdown. I have to get into, well, first of all, I mean, y'all come from all different professions, walks of life. A friend of mine, Chris Knight, is a professional drummer. You got the legal counsel, as you said. What all different? Can you, off the top of your head, recite all the different backgrounds?
Well, definitely Motley Crue stepchild. I always said that's what we should rename the bus. Andy Patrick really said it best. We've got attorneys. We've got, I'm pretty sure, we got doctors, contractors.
Jimmy Kimball. Jimmy Kimball's a banker, right?
Yes, Jimmy Kimball's banker. We've got good old country boys, and Andy Patrick said we got hippies. I mean, it's almost you could write a song about it. Or whatever, I love this bar song because we've got everything out there, and we all get along like brothers and sisters do, and it's a blast.
All right, we got to get into the dynamic between the cheap seats and the Cajun Cafe. People who are in either the cheap seats or the Cajun Cafe sort of get a sense of it, but people who aren't and who just sort of view it from a distance really have no clue and might even view you guys as one and the same when you're definitely not. I guess I'll give my take on it from having hung out in both areas, and maybe the source of a bit of a tension and rivalry between the two. My sense is that the Cajun Cafe has grown into more of a social event where people go there so they can drink beer and eat good food and then maybe watch some baseball. I don't know that that's totally fair because a lot of big-time baseball fans are very interested in the game from the Cajun Cafe. But the cheap seats, you guys are the purists. You guys are the ones who know the ERA of the number 4 pitcher for the other team. And you're watching every pitch.
Yep.
Is that really the essence of it?
For the most part, yes. I mean, you will see some fans down there watching the game very intently, and then you'll have. Speaking of the Cajun Cafe and their seats, I mean they've got those folks too. But there's a more of a social atmosphere going on over there, in a corporate social setting. And yes, we're all about the game. We know more about the game than probably than some of what we know our kids are doing. Sad to say. And that's what we're going to focus on. I mean, we may be having a social deal out there, but our eyes are looking forward at every pitch. So I would call it, and there's not much of a riff anymore these days. We all get together at the SO Club with the Cajun Cafe folks, and after the game. So I mean, but back in the day, we were at least I felt we were looked upon as those idiots, those young idiots just raising hell, and they didn't truly understand what we were about. And now some of them did, because really the Cajun Cafe and they're the foundation of the Cajun Cafe and our groups were right there together initially, because I believe it was Coleman and Truck, who was Tommy Bowden's assistant at the time, and they were the ones doing all the cooking. And we would even go on road trips with them. But this was right before the bus kind of came into play. So, I mean, we all got along then, but then, they went to a whole different level, which, we're all mostly college kids at that time, and all of their members are corporate donors, or they're tied in with the athletic department, football program, I guess the Clemson athletic elite, kind of, so to say. And so they didn't, I'm 40 years old now. If a bunch of young, dumb kids, sit up next to me, I'm probably going to be like, good Lord, we got to deal with this. But, in the setting out there, I wouldn't these days. But it's not an issue, really. I don't think it ever truly was. But, we all poke fun at each other back during that time. And I remember some that were a part of the Cajun Cafe that now hang out with us more up there on the bus. And then there's some that sit over there in the Cajun Cafe that were with us too. So it's back and forth a little bit.
What were some of those tensions? Like, how did they materialize? What are some ways you can help describe just how maybe there was some back and forth?
At least on our end, we felt we got overlooked a little bit when we were out there giving them a hard time. On the radio, they'd always love to talk about Cajun Cafe and the food that they were bringing. And Cajun Cafe this, Cajun Cafe that, and Dan Scott, when he was there, Dan Scott knew where his bread was buttered.
Literally.
Yeah, we we took care of Dan Scott too, though, and he gave it. I mean, he was shout out for both those. And then then Don didn't give us much love, and so that's kind of, I think, the main riff that got in our side, which, you know, Cajun Cafe guys didn't really care, you know.
So this is all Don Munson's doing.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
People
are gonna laugh when they hear that point. That's been said a couple times.
So, just as an explainer to the listeners, when he's talking about them talking about the cafe on air, you know, Dan, you know, in the second or third inning would say something. Dan Scott would say something like, something smelling really good out there in the Cajun Cafe. And then, you know, a couple innings later, they would deliver a big plate of food to him so he could eat it during between innings. And you guys would also take a plate to the radio booth. I never knew that.
We did from time to time. Yeah, we would try and still get in there to give them something depending on what we were doing, if we were even cooking that night. Yes, but it wasn't probably as a regular occurrence like Cajun Cafe did.
And it's interesting. Also, as an explainer, you mentioned Truck Donald Hemel.
That's right. I can remember.
Yeah, he was the director of football ops under Tommy Bowden, and that's the reason that it is called the Cajun Cafe, is because Truck is from Louisiana. That's actually where he is back now. And so I'm sure lots of folks are, okay, Clemson, Tigers, Cajun. What's the connection there?
Yeah, nobody really knew that background.
But I think you're right, like in terms of the difference between the two. I mean, they even call the Cajun Cafe, they call them suites. So it's like a luxury box kind of equivalent for the donors who buy out, you know, big sections of it and then bring their friends and all that. So it is definitely more of a social event, it seems, over there.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think we all know who and what we are at this point, and we all get along just fine. So
things got smoothed over, you said. Did that happen organically over time, or was there something specific was there a summit meeting or something that allowed things to be?
No, nothing like that. No, we just got together enough at the SO Club, and it finally, I think, healed those scars. No,
so they're real scars, all from Don Munson.
I'm just poking fun at it.
It's Don Munson's fault. I never knew this.
Now that will stick a little bit. Yeah, we gave and still do. We'll give Don Munson a hard time over that.
Just because he would exclusively mention the cafe, and you guys didn't exist basically on the airwaves.
That's the way we felt. That may not be the fact, but that's the way we felt.
So, has he mentioned y'all recently, in recent years?
Well, I hate to say the radio went out. So now whether that cord got cut, I'm not sure. But we can't say either way.
Oh, y'all don't listen anymore?
No, not currently. We are in the process of trying to bring that back with some new wiring. But yeah, let's put it this way too. Our legal advisor was not the biggest fan of hearing the. So he got a little pull there, but I'm going to push back a little bit this season on trying to get that back.
That is absolutely hilarious. So it's kind of a political thing. All right, I got to share. You were kind enough to solicit some anecdotes from some Cheap Seats members through email, and you forwarded some of them to me. So, of course, I have to start with the acquisition of the bus. It says, and this is from, Frank
Frank
Murphy. Okay, 2003, about 3 weeks before the season opened, we were in our apartment in D Square, and Brian Griffiths was cruising the classifieds for interesting things. I assume classifieds in newspapers back then.
Yep.
Bus, the ad was bus, $400 with spare engine. Wheels started spinning, and Dave, Will, Brian, myself, and whoever else was hanging came up with what we made into a tailgating machine. Hell, we couldn't even put a deck on top of it and sit on top of it for baseball. We could even put a deck on top of it and sit on top of it for baseball. I think we went that afternoon to Lawrence, South Carolina. The bus was the old Lawrence Academy activity short bus. Brian, Dave, and myself were considered big donors and threw in $100, and a small collection was taken in the apartment for the remaining $100. Picked the bus up, thinking beyond the statute of limitation now. So we got to Lawrence. Spare motor was already in the back, and we may have used one of the plates off of one of our cars to go on the back of it. The bus ran well enough to get it back to the sail club. Of course, we drove all back roads and probably took 3 hours for a 1 hour ride. Another collection was taken to buy house paint and lumber for the deck, making the official founding member group number was set to 9. Spent a week painting a building deck and parked out Wednesdays or earlier before opening weekend. Cheap Seats was themed after the Alabama song Cheap Seats. Figured we would need a legal driver at some point, so I applied. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
Frank applied for a job with the city of Clemson to drive a cat bus. They trained me for a CDL, and the rest was history. Oh, my gosh. Amazing.
It's even better. I mean, just looking back at it, you're like, this is just hilarious how this came together.
And then Frank's recollection of took the bus to the South Carolina game in 2003, the 63-17 game, all back roads, took 4 to 5 plus hours, 1 keg of beer, and 13 quarts of oil.
That's a true story.
Were you on the bus?
No, I actually drove down there. I met up with him, but I did not ride the bus down. I knew that was going to be a rough ride.
Oh, ye of little faith. I remember pulling up in the Vista in Columbia, and USC, I'm assuming this was late night, and USC fans didn't know what to do with themselves. Drunk USC fans often stopped and peed on the tires. They didn't say much after that loss. We parked right behind the cockabooses for the game. Definitely was an attention getter. We did paint the yellow line right past me on the floor, so we felt it was legal to drink. Ha ha. Wait, what? They paint a yellow line?
Yeah, you remember there was a yellow line, and the bus drivers always had to tell you stay behind the yellow line.
Oh, okay, yeah. Not me, of course. Also, the fuel gauge didn't work, so at some point on the trip, in the middle of nowhere, we ran out of gas. Brakes don't work when the engine is off because they're hydraulic, not air. We coasted down a big hill through a gas station and finally rested in front of a gas pump. This is like a movie. Mainly just dumb luck. We dodged a lot of things but didn't hit anything. Now that I think about it, I probably didn't have power steering either. Owner came running out, an elderly man out in shock saying, no, we're closed. You can't be here. You can imagine what that looked like. I think he was in shock. He finally calmed down and turned the pumps on for us so that we would get out of his gas station. Definitely a butt pucker moment.
Yeah, and if you, Dave Topham, I forwarded some of Dave's comments. He had the exact same story because he was one of the other original guys. Exact same thing. That is a true story.
Also, there are seats from the old Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha that are still up there.
Yeah, that was Mark Rivera made that happen when they started tearing down Omaha. He made sure to get some, and yes, they are the first row seats that are mounted on top of the platform currently.
Wow. Is there anything I've missed that we need to cover here? That's a lot of history.
I mean, there's a lot. Yeah. I mean,
you're trying to keep it family friendly here.
Well, that too. Yeah. I'm trying to think the story. Where I think it was the Davidson game. Yeah, Patrick Martin was talking about the Davidson game. That was a highlight. Yeah, because that was, if you remember the YouTube video that took off where they started doing like bowling with the players and each team did a skit to compete during the rain delay.
Yeah.
Well, the same game, nobody else is in the stands. And there's like 5 people left on the bus, and it's pouring rain, and Punk is standing out there holding an umbrella over one of the guys' heads. He was an older gentleman, so he didn't want him to get soaking wet. And the EPI came up and told Punk that there are no umbrellas allowed in the stadium. and Punk came unglued on this poor fellow. And it is something that is highlighted, I would say, almost at least once a game to this day. How he just completely lost it. And, so that was a defining moment for us. And I'm trying to think, oh, there's a good one. Another crazy time from Patrick Martin. This was during the game, 2013 or 14. Doug Kingsmore, they were building, I think, the new dugouts or clubhouse area. So they didn't have bathrooms. So they had brought in a bathroom trailer into the bullpen. And so they came out to start an inning, and nobody was really paying attention. But on the first pitch, the batter had a check swing. And so the umpire looks down to the first base umpire, and did he go? And at that moment, the umpire, who apparently failed to tell the home plate umpire he had to run to the bathroom, comes busting out of the porta potty, and in cheap seats just lights up and goes, "Yes, he did!" And so they got no call on it, and the poor guy, is just embarrassed, rolling out of the bathroom, and then we light the umpire up the rest of the game. So that's one of the classic moments, and we got so many. I mean, it truly is. You could come up with some sort of crazy Animal House movie about everything that goes on out there and continues to go on. But it's something special, and it's something therapeutic to all of us, and we're proud. We're all proud to be a part of it, and we still have folks. I think our email list is up to 140 people. That have somewhat been in touch with the bus, whether they're ticket members or just kind of were up there with us all the time. That still interact with us. So I've been working on our new 20th anniversary T-shirts that just have come out. We've already sold 81 of them, and I haven't even printed them yet. But we still have that big group that we're connected to. And just plug them. We got new hats coming out too. You can keep an eye out for that on our Cheap Seats Facebook page. I wish I could remember all of it, but I've had too many good times out there that I don't remember a lot of them.
Well, love the fact that this is going to be published on opening day of y'all's 20th anniversary. What a cool story! What a cool history! And I have every bit of confidence it's gonna keep going another 20 years. So I really appreciate you joining us. and I might come pay y'all a visit sometime.
Well, Larry, we'd love to have you up there. Come on just as soon as possible. Just let me know. And, thank you. It's been an incredible 20 years, and we look forward to many more. And all of our members are just ecstatic to be a part of it. And we've all put in a lot of hard work, and it truly has paid off. And we appreciate Clemson and their commitment to us, and we'll keep working to push our guys as hard as we possibly can. And hopefully we're going to be looking to have another super regional year, a regional and super regional year, hopefully, because there is no better baseball than regional baseball on the cheap seats.
Hope y'all are up to code when y'all end up out there tomorrow. Best of luck.
Well, I promise you, the first person there is going to be me and the fire marshal.
All the best to you.
Have a good one, Larry. Thank you.
Man, a truly special part of, I would say, not just Clemson baseball, but the Clemson experience as a whole. Thanks to Garrett for sharing so much of his time with us to share that story. Also appreciate the support of our sponsors for helping make this happen. And then, of course, thanks to every one of you for putting the finger on that play button every week. Everybody have a great weekend. Cheers.